the previous episode, we spoke about the introduction to the book, where we discussed concepts like intuitive repulsion, fast and frugal thinking, and the adaptive unconscious. Today, we're going to be talking about the first chapter of the book, called The Theory of Thin Slices. How a little bit of knowledge can go a long way. To set the tone for this chapter, the author tells us about an experiment conducted by psychologist John Gottman at University of Washington. It was conducted on a couple, Bill and Susan. In the experiment, the couple was made to sit 5 feet apart. There were sensors and electrodes clipped to the couple's ears and nails to measure any physiological changes. And beneath their chair was a jiggleometer that measured how much each of them is moving. They were being video recorded for 15 minutes and they were asked to discuss about any topic within their marriage. They decided to talk about the dog. Bill did not like the dog, Susan liked the dog. This brings us to the first part of the chapter, called the Love Lab. Now if I asked you that you have to predict the future of a particular relationship, or tell me whether that relationship is healthy or not, how long would you want to observe the couple, or how many details you would want to know about the couple? Probably many. But that's not what psychologist John Gottman believes. He conducted studies called the Love Lab, where he studied more than 3,000 married couples. The results were analyzed using the SPAFF system, which is a coding system. It has 20 codes, and these 20 codes correspond to 20 emotions, which a couple can express during a conversation. Every second of the videotape is given one specific code. So in a 15-minute videotape, there are 1,800 seconds, and hence there are 1,800 codes, 900 for the wife and 900 for the husband. After these studies, Gottman said that if he would listen to 1 hour of conversation between a husband and a wife, he can predict with 95% accuracy whether the couple will remain married in 15 years or not. Another professor studying Gottman's work said that listening to 3 minutes of conversations between couples can help us predict with accuracy the future of the relationship. So what Gottman is doing here is not intuitive, or it's not snap judgments. It's a classic example of deliberate thinking. And this brings us to the concept of thin slicing. Thin slicing is the ability of our unconscious to find patterns in behaviors and situations around us based on very narrow slices of experience. So the concepts that we've talked about till now, the adaptive unconscious, the fast and frugal thinking, the intuitive repulsion, all of them are based on thin slicing. So when I told you the story about the museum and the statue, and I said that the art experts had a hunch that there is something wrong, what they were actually doing is thin slicing. They have a pattern formed already based on previous slices of information, that how an original statue should look like and how an old statue is supposed to look, how a new statue is supposed to look. And based on these slices, they were able to feel that there is something wrong with the statue. So they were thin slicing. To talk more about this chapter, over to you, Devanshi.
So taking ahead, Bill and Suzanne's story a little ahead, author now wanted to understand their SPAFF score. So what he did was he sat with one of the Gottman's employees to understand the same. So both of them were now sitting and observing the recording. The conversation in the recording went like where Bill was talking that he loved dogs and he loved his previous dog as well. However, this new dog that they have, he doesn't like it at all since he smells and creates a lot of mess around the house. So he did not want, and he is not open to the idea of having dogs around anymore. Now, for author, Bill seems to be someone who is cooperative in the relationship because he's trying to make Suzanne see that why he doesn't want a dog. He likes dog, but he doesn't want it because of the mess that he creates, and if there's some middle ground. That is what it seems to people like you and me and author who are hearing. However, Gottman employee told him that Bill is in fact being defensive in their relationship. Now, you are thinking how, right? So in the book it's written that Bill was using yes and but strategy where he seems to be agreeing in the first part, and in the second part he is saying that no, I'm not open to the idea, no, whatever you say, I don't want dogs anymore. So this was the intention of his conversation, and this was how his message was coming out as. While Bill was talking, Suzanne rolled her eyes more than twice in the span of 60 seconds. Rolling your eyes is a sign of clear contempt in the relationship. Okay? And now this brings me to the second part of the chapter, that is the marriage code. Every marriage, every relationship is a mix of emotions. Some positive, some negative. Now, every relationship has a mix of both, of course. Now, how do you know whether my relationship is healthy or not? So, this book gives us a magic code. The magic code is 5:1. You have to follow this ratio to know, to keep your relationship happy and short. 5 positive emotion is to 1 negative emotion in the marriage. So after having at least 5 positive conversation, you can have 1 negative conversation. If that's the ratio of your relationship is definitely healthy. Remember, your relationship can never be all about positive emotion, and if that's the case, then there's something wrong in the relationship and you need to reflect. So this is what the second part of the chapter talks about, the marriage code, that is 5:1. The further part, what author explains it to us is the sentiments in the relationship, that is again the positive and the negative sentiment, and how it changes everything around. So for example, if my relationship is driven by positive sentiment, so say my boyfriend comes back and I'm just very excited about something, and I tell him that, hey, you know what, this happened, and he would just snap at me and say, hey, could you please keep it to yourself for now, I'll talk to you later. So he's clearly irritated. Now if my relationship is getting driven by a positive sentiment, I would think, okay, he must have had a long day and he needs a space and hence he is irritated, I'll talk to him the next day. However, if my relationship is driven by a negative sentiment and my partner is coming and giving me a surprise and he's telling, Devanshi, I got this for you, I got this for you, even this, I would just see him as, oh, see, that fake person is trying to do something really nice for me for once. So this is what a negative sentiment in a relationship does. Hence it is very important to be aware of how each and everything that is driving your relationship is, what is the sentiment behind it, basically the positive or the negative. And to master the art of blink, personally I believe that you should be not biased. So for example, if I am looking something as only positive sentiment, I could not see the negatives of the person, and if I'm seeing only as the negatives, I could not see the positives. So your outlook to life and outlook to anything that you're approaching or that is new, you should not go with any preconceived notions or preconceived judgments, and realize that a person must be positive in so many levels basically, but yet there could be something where your instincts can still help you. So try to keep your sentiments apart. But when it comes to relationship, please make sure that your relationship ratio is 5:1 and your relationship is driven by positive sentiment and not by negative sentiment. Over to you, Dhwani.
The third part of this chapter is called Importance of Contempt. Over here, the author tells us about his own little story. He took 10 videotapes from the Gottman studies, each tape of 3 minutes. 5 couples from these tapes were still together and 5 were separated. The author had to tell which of these couples are together and which are separated. He could tell only 5 correctly, which he said he could do it by tossing a coin. He said that what he was trying to do when he was studying the tapes was to find the ratio of the positive emotions to the negative emotions, the concept that Devanshi talked about. But that did not help him, because for him he thought, what exactly is positive emotion and what exactly is negative emotion? And he started thinking that how come Gottman has gotten so good at it? He doesn't need to see every single detail. He has become so good at thin slicing, right? And that's when he says that Hausman just pays attention to what he needs from the information. So in these steps, he pays attention to something called the 4 horsemen, which are criticism, stonewalling, contempt, and defensiveness. And out of these 4 emotions, the most important emotion is contempt. Gottman says that if one or both of the partners show contempt in the relationship towards each other, it is the single most important sign that the marriage is in trouble. So most of us believe that criticism is very harmful to the relationship, because when you're criticizing someone, it's like condemning the character. But over here we are told that contempt is even more harmful, because when you're showing contempt towards someone, you're putting yourself at a higher position and you're putting the other person down. You're looking down on them and you're insulting them. It is kind of hierarchical. So this can be very harmful, and it can be stressful to the partner who is experiencing the contempt. And this also affects the immune system. In a study, it was shown that people whose partners show contempt towards them experienced more colds than people whose partners did not show contempt towards them. And there is no gender difference in contempt, that only men show contempt or women show contempt. Both of the genders show contempt. So if you can measure contempt in a relationship, you can predict the future of the relationship. If you can see contempt in the relationship, then you can easily say that that relationship is not going to be long lasting. So what we do here, or what we do when we thin slice, is an automated version of what Gottman does. We sift through the information that is available to us. We throw out all the information that is irrelevant to us, and we zero in on what is important. So this is how the unconscious also works. Now we might feel that thin slicing is not very beneficial, but unknowingly we have become so good at thin slicing that most of the times thin slicing gives us better decisions, better outcomes than deliberate thinking. Of course, we need to be more educated about thin slicing. We need to understand it better so that we can consciously work on it. For the next part of the chapter,
Going ahead, the next part of the chapter is called The Secret of the Bedroom. Now, let's understand what is the secret of the bedroom. So now let's start with the situation. Okay, say you are an HR of the company and you are to hire an employee, and you meet various candidates and you finally like a person and you think that the person is perfect on papers, on qualifications and everything. So you decide to hire him. You go to your boss and you tell him that this is the person I have shortlisted and hired. Now your boss wants to know whether he is right fit for the company or not. So what he does is he gives you the task, and let me tell you, your boss is a little, he asks for too much basically. Okay, so he wants you to confirm whether he is the right fit or not. So in order to do that, he gives you 2 tasks. You can choose either one of those. Okay, your first task is to spend your weekends with that person, or whenever you get free time, go to movies, have dinner, have lunch with them. So spend your free time with that person. And the second option that he gives is, whenever he's not around, just go and check out his house for half an hour or so. So what is the option that you will choose? You can pause the video and comment down what is the option that you're going to choose. Now most of us will obviously choose first option, like what good can we get going to his house when he is not around, right? But no, the right option to choose is the second one. Now I'll tell you how. There was a study conducted by Samuel Gosling called the Big 5 Inventory. It is a test, basically there is a set of questionnaire which judges a person's personality on 5 grounds, that is extravention, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to new experiences, and emotional stability. Okay, so these are the 5 parameters of the test. So what he did was he collected 80 college students and asked their close friends to fill that questionnaire. Now they filled the entire questionnaire, and now he has the test results with them. Other thing that he did was he called a bunch of strangers and he asked to visit their hostel rooms of those 80 students. He did not tell him what kind of a person he or she is. He might be a girl, he might be a boy or something. They have to just observe the room, and they were given a questionnaire and they were just supposed to fill it about whatever they feel about the person could be like, right? Now, when the results came out, close friends did excellent when it came to extravention and agreeableness. They were able to nail it like to a T, and they knew it that to what extent they are, their extravention or agreeableness is. However, the strangers were able to nail the other three parts, that is conscientiousness, openness to new experiences, and emotional stability. And this study shows that strangers are better judges of personalities than the person or people you know. So when we know somebody, there are obviously some filters and obviously some judgments that we make. But if I don't know what kind of a person he or she is, what he looks like, or what the way he speaks or something. I'm just looking at the belonging, the environment, their personal space, and that talks about it a lot. And this is the secret of the bedroom. The way you keep your belongings, the way how your room is surrounded with, what kind of posters you have, what kind of books you have, whether you have books or not, speaks a lot about what kind of a personality you are. And hence, this is what the secret of bedroom is. And hence, if you want to know if somebody is the right fit or not, you are supposed to go to their bedroom or their house and see that whether they are or they are not, because it will speak a lot about their personality compared to what the person can speak. So understand this, we humans are very less self-aware about ourselves. So it's not my intention to come and portray myself as something wrong or something that I am not. However, I end up showing you some other side of my personality because I myself don't know what kind of a personality I have, right? I don't see myself. These eyes are a beautiful thing. It can see everything around you, but it cannot see itself until and unless it's mirror, right? I can look at everything, how my nose looks like, how my hands look like, everything, but I can't see what my eyes look like. Similarly, we don't know what kind of personality we are, and hence strangers are better judges. So next time if you want to know, just don't only take person at its face value or at what they are speaking, but also look at those other things and how they keep their environment or how their desk is. It will speak a lot. Over to you, Dhwani, for the next.
The fifth part of this chapter is called Listening to Doctors. Over here, the author tells us about an insurance company that covers doctors against malpractices suits. One of the employees of this company was to find out that which of their clients is more likely to be sued. Now there were two ways to do so. One is to study the doctor's educational background, training, skill levels, and patient reviews and all that kind of information. The second method is to listen to the conversation between the doctor and the patients. Now, the second one, medical researcher Wendy Levinson says that the doctors who have not been sued spend more than 3 minutes talking to the patients than doctors who have been sued. This was studied further by psychologist Nalini in the Gottman way. She had tapes of conversation between the doctor and the patients. But the tape did not have any content. It did not have any words. It just had tone, pitch, rhythm, and all of these little details. And she had a group of judges, and the judges had to rate the doctors on 4 pillars: hostility, dominance, warmth, and anxiousness. And then they were to tell that which of the doctors are more likely to get sued and which of the doctors are not likely to be sued. Now these judges did not know the doctors personally. They did not know the skill level or education level. They just had very thin slices of information available to them, which is the tone, the rhythm and the pitch. Now, The result was that the doctors whose voices showed more dominance belonged to the group that is more likely to get sued, and the doctors whose voice showed less dominance but more of warmth belonged to the group that is less likely to be sued. So over here we understand that these judges had the thinnest slice of information possible. No words, no prior knowledge, just tone, pitch and rhythm. And still they were able to decide correctly or accurately that which of the doctors are going to be sued and which are not going to be. And we also understand that most of the times when patients file a suit against a doctor for malpractice, it is not only for shoddy medical practice but also for how the doctor treats the patient personally, how they talk to them, right? So I recently watched a movie called Nights in Rodanthe. In that movie, there is a woman who dies on the operation table itself. And what does the surgeon do? He did not go and talk to the husband of the woman himself. He sent a nurse to tell this heartbreaking news to the husband. And this really upset the husband because he thought he deserves the decency that the surgeon speaks to him, tells him 2 words of sympathy maybe, or that the surgeon is sorry. But the husband did not get that and he filed a suit against the doctor. Later the doctor goes to meet the husband and tells him that he is sorry, and that made a lot of difference. So it clearly shows that how a doctor talks to the patient is very important. So the next time you visit a doctor and you feel that the doctor is not listening to you or not respecting you, listen to that feeling. You have thin slice a doctor. And this should not restrict only to doctors. This can be applicable to any relationships that you have, to any people you talk to, communicate to. If you have a feeling that the person is not listening to you, disrespecting you or anything of that sort, you have thin slice the person and listen to that feeling. Don't ignore it. For the next part of the chapter, over to you, Devanshi.
So now we are heading towards the end of the chapter 1. The end of the chapter 1 is the power of clans. What is Blink all about? The power of clans. What is thin slicing all about? The power of clans. Now I am sure when Dhwani explained you all the concept of thin slicing, you must be thinking, no yaar, mujhse nahi hota hai. I don't know what thin slicing is. I don't know how it is done. But let me tell you, we are humans and we thin slice every situation in our lives. Whenever you are making a decision, you are thin slicing. Even if somebody else is making a decision for you, you are thin slicing because you think, okay, out of all the people I know, including myself, I trust this person to make the right decisions for me, right? So we all are thin slicing always. It's not like I don't know how to thin slice. It's just that we don't know the mastery of it. So now that we have it established that we all can thin slice, now in the further chapters we'll learn to master that. We'll learn to educate our skill of thin slicing, okay? And for that you have to see things beyond the way you see at it as. You have to stop looking at the big picture, you have to look at the small picture, you have to see what is going around you, you have to learn to observe minute things that's happening around you, right? And there's so many other things. I've started playing some game, I don't know the name, but then you have to eliminate cards and you have to look for similarities and stuff. That game is actually helping me to, calculate things as fast as I could, and that is helping me thin slice things better. So find such games which will help you to do it. I'll try and find the name and I'll link it in the description so you can also try. So yes, similarly, and thin slicing art can be mastered by practice, you guys. You have to practice a lot. So for example, see, in every profession you are a master at thin slicing. So if I am a coach, If somebody is coming and I know it, what is happening in other person's mind. In our language, in coaching language, we call it instincts. That we get instincts whether something is working, something is not working, or whether our client is speaking the truth or not. We know it. We get that kind of instincts from somewhere, right? But that somewhere is nothing but thin slicing. That is what I've got to know after reading this book. In your profession also, you must be thin slicing. And why are you able to thin slice like a pro? Because you know your profession. You know the way around it, and that is the key. So if you want to master the art, you have to practice a lot. You cannot give up. You have to build that kind of expertise, and you have to learn to look not only at the broader picture but also at the smaller picture. And it always starts with smaller picture, smaller, and similarly, slowly that will become the broader picture. Okay, with this I end the chapter 1 here, and we will be again coming back for the chapter 2 very soon. So please stay tuned with us. Thank you for watching this video, and please do like, share, subscribe, comment, and share the word. All the book nerds that you know who wants to read but don't get time to read, or could just use this shortcut. And if you really like our content, please do share, and we love you guys. Thank you. See you next time.